And I'm with National Taxpayer Union, Andrew Moylan. So he was on a panel this morning at CPAC talking about taxes of all things and overspending. So why don't you give us a brief summary of what you guys talked about?
Taxes are too high and we spend too much. So that was sort of the bulk of it. But we were trying to lay out kind of what the problem is, and everybody knows the numbers are really scary.
Right.
But the numbers have been scary for a long time, and so we're trying to figure out what's the answer, what's achievable, how do we solve it. We had Congressman Mick Mulvaney from South Carolina who has an interesting story himself. He defeated John Spratt, who was the Democrat who was the chair of the Budget Committee for years, decided not to write a budget last year, the Democrats, and so he's in an interesting spot succeeding a guy like that, and he's a great conservative, and we're looking forward to seeing what kind of things he's doing on the Budget Committee to try and make government smaller and more sustainable for the future.
So what do you think about this proposed $100 billion cut from the new House GOP? Do you think this is a substantial start, or do you think it's not enough?
I mean, listen, it's a start. It's not nothing. $100 billion is not chump change even in Washington,
right.
Where people throw this around like they're rounding errors. So $100 billion is a big deal, but even $100 billion only covers about 6.5 cents of every dollar of overspending that we're going to have this year.
Right.
$100 billion is nothing compared to the $1.5 trillion deficit that we have. And so it is just a start. We're going to have to do a heck of a lot more if we ever want to be able to get back to a situation where we're spending only what we're taking in. So we're hoping to do that in the next couple of months.
You said we have to do a heck of a lot more. What does that entail?
Well, the big thing, and this is what I talked about in the panel this morning, is the sort of elephant in the room is entitlement reform. We talk about all these discretionary programs. Everybody talks about earmarks, and they're really important, and NTU's been active on these things for years. But if we want to solve our budget problems, we have to start with Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security,
right.
the Defense Department. That's where we spend the bulk of our money, and so I think that we'll see when Republicans introduce their budget resolution what kind of way we're going to tackle those things.
Do you see privatization of Social Security, at least partially, maybe giving people a choice if you want to give your money to the government, if you feel safe doing that with their track record, or if you want to open up a private investment account? Do you see that as a viable option for entitlement reform?
I mean, I think that it's a great option in terms of what I'd like to see happen.
Right.
Am I convinced that Congress is going to be there with you and me on it?
Right.
I don't know, not yet.
Right.
And that's why we're hoping to kind of ramp up some of this pressure, because we have this window now where we have a new wave of fiscal conservatives in the House. There are potentially going to be a lot more in the Senate in the next cycle.
Right.
Who knows what happens in the presidential election, where we have a window where we can start to get some of these things done, where we can really start to do these reforms, and all that stuff was impossible the last few years, may be possible now, so we're hoping to do it.
Well, they talk about Social Security reform as being maybe raising the retirement age, but that's not really reform if the government's still spending Social Security, spending $100 billion a day more than they take in every day on Social Security. So what does real reform mean? I mean, reform is a word that's kind of tossed around when they change things that don't really make a difference.
Well, I think that Social Security faces this sort of one-time bump upwards in the cost of the program. It's just going to cost us more in the future than it does now. We know that. We know what the numbers are.
Right.
So if you just want to solve it in the context of the system now, you either move taxes up or move benefits down. But that doesn't really solve the problem, because we still have this expensive, unaccountable system that for young people like you and I, who knows if that's going to be around. I have a 2-year-old daughter who's sitting at home right now. Am I convinced that Social Security is going to be around for her? No, I'm not. And so that's why we talk about giving people individual investment, giving them some stake in this so that they can have much better returns for the future and hopefully a more sustainable retirement as a result.
I always say that putting the Social Security money that is taken out of your paycheck under you're putting it under your mattress is going to be worth more when you retire than it will be with the government, because as soon as they take it out, it's pretty much spent already.
Yeah, there are poll results where there are more people that are similar in age to you and I that believe in UFOs than believe that Social Security is going to be there for them when they retire, and I think I probably agree with them.
Would you agree with the statement that Social Security for younger generations in particular is generational theft?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way that the system is set up, and that was sort of the big fundamental mistake when they designed this thing. Is they said we want to be able to deliver benefits to people today, and so instead of waiting for people to build up years and years and years worth of taxes and then draw it when they retire, we're going to have current workers pay for current retirees. And you know what happened is we had this huge demographic boom that's now hitting, where we have so many people who are going to be retiring, and you know there are just fewer of us that are out there working to pay it. So. That was the big mistake that they made, and that's putting a huge burden on you and me and people a lot younger than us to be able to pay those bills.
Right. So moving forward, get one piece of advice for the new GOP and people who are going to run for office for the Senate in 2012, what would it be?
I think that the real message is that we have an opportunity to deal with these things now. These are here and now problems. They're not tomorrow or next month or next year or next decade problems. You know, I said this in my speech earlier today, that we face the real prospect of a debt crisis, and that's not going to build over 6 months. It's going to build over 6 hours because people in the Asian market say, you know what, I'm not so sure about this American debt any longer. And when that moment comes, the house of cards comes crashing down, and we're going to see massive tax increases, huge spending cuts just to be able to keep things running. And nobody wants to see that. So we have to start tackling this stuff now if we want to be able to prevent that crisis from happening, and I certainly hope that they do.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.